When people cross 60, then 70, and especially 75, they start to experience three problems that almost feel inevitable: a constant low grade inflammation that makes the body ache and tire easily, belly fat that refuses to shrink no matter how clean the diet becomes, and a gradual loss of muscle that turns simple movements into daily challenges. Inflammation drains your energy. Belly fat raises cardiovascular risks. Weak muscles increase the chance of falls, loss of independence, and ultimately shorten lifespan. Many believe the only way to fix these issues is through strong medications, expensive therapies, or intense workouts they no longer have the stamina for. But in clinical practice, I've noticed something surprising. Sometimes the most powerful changes come from the smallest adjustments. And one of those adjustments is the daily use of just 5 grams of a natural compound that most people never think about. So let me ask you a question to open today's conversation. What if I told you that taking 5 grams of a single compound each day could make inflammation fade, soften stubborn belly fat, and trigger a noticeable muscle response in as little as 10 to 14 days? Would you believe it? Today we're diving into exactly that. I'm Dr. Lee, and joining me is Dr. Barbara.
When we examined the research more closely, we discovered that certain natural compounds don't just reduce inflammation, they activate metabolic pathways that neither medication nor regular food can reach. These compounds improve blood flow, increase cellular energy production, and help the body rebuild muscle in a way that aging adults often assume is no longer possible, and that's why this topic matters. After a certain age, the question isn't can I still build muscle, but can my body still absorb and use nutrients well enough to do it? This 5-gram strategy answers that question in a surprisingly powerful way.
In today's episode, we'll reveal why 5 grams a day can create such dramatic changes. We'll rank the 7 most effective natural compounds, from mild to the absolute strongest, and we'll show you how to use them safely to see results within 7 to 30 days. If you're over 60 and truly want a different outcome for your body, your strength, and your long-term health, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This episode may change the way you think about inflammation, fat loss, and muscle growth.
Let's begin our ranking with spirulina, a compound that many people recognize but often underestimate. Spirulina sits at number 7, not because it's weak, but because its effects are gentle and gradual. It works primarily by calming low-grade inflammation throughout the body, particularly by lowering IL-6, one of the key inflammatory markers that rises as we age. The fascinating thing about spirulina is that it contains an unusually high concentration of protein, about 60 to 70%, yet it isn't heavy on the digestive system the way animal protein often is for adults over 60. Instead, it supports light protein synthesis, reinforces the immune system, and even benefits bones and eye health, which is why so many longevity experts still recommend it as a foundational supplement.
What most users notice within the first 5 to 7 days is a shift in energy rather than a dramatic physical change. They feel slightly less fatigued in the afternoon, their endurance increases just enough to make walks more comfortable, and the skin often looks more vibrant because spirulina naturally reduces oxidative stress. It's subtle, but you can sense the body becoming lighter and less inflamed. Now, spirulina isn't meant to be a muscle explosion compound. It doesn't dramatically boost nitric oxide or accelerate protein synthesis in the same way our top-ranked ingredients do. This is why it works beautifully for beginners, people who are just starting their anti-inflammatory journey, or those who have been sedentary and need something safe, gentle, and reliable to stabilize the system before moving on to stronger compounds.
So the conclusion here is simple. Spirulina is powerful in its own quiet way. It smooths out inflammation, supports basic metabolic functions, and prepares the body for bigger improvements. But if your goal is rapid fat reduction or fast muscle activation, spirulina alone won't deliver that explosive effect, and that's why it ranks number 7 on our list today.
Coming in at number 6 is moringa, a deeply underrated powerhouse in the world of natural anti-inflammatory compounds. What makes moringa special is the blend of polyphenols and micronutrients that work together to calm inflammation not just in muscles, but also in joints. Many older adults describe feeling looser or less stiff within the first week, which makes a lot of sense because moringa directly targets inflammatory pathways linked to arthritis and age related joint pain. But the real reason moringa earns its place on this list is its unique effect on blood sugar. As we age, the body becomes less sensitive to insulin, which makes it far easier to accumulate belly fat and far harder to lose it. Moringa helps reverse that trend. Naturally lowering blood glucose levels after meals, it allows the body to respond to insulin more efficiently. And when insulin becomes more sensitive, fat, especially belly fat, becomes easier to mobilize and burn. Many people notice their abdomen feeling softer or less bloated within days, partly because moringa also reduces water retention.
Another benefit worth mentioning is its mineral profile. Moringa contains magnesium and potassium, two minerals that play a crucial role in muscle contraction and relaxation. As a result, moringa not only supports metabolic health but also subtly enhances physical performance, making movements feel steadier and less tiring. This makes moringa an excellent choice for individuals dealing with stubborn belly fat, fluctuating blood sugar, or chronic joint discomfort. It's not the most dramatic compound on the list, but it creates meaningful shifts in the body's internal balance, preparing the system for stronger fat burning and muscle building responses that come later in the rankings.
In short, moringa is the gentle reset many people over 60 need, calming inflammation, stabilizing metabolism, and setting the stage for deeper transformation. That's why it holds a strong and well-deserved position at rank number 6.
Ranked at number 5 is chia seed powder, one of the simplest yet most effective natural tools for reducing inflammation and supporting metabolic health. What makes chia powder so unique is the gel it forms when mixed with water. Inside the digestive tract, that gel acts almost like a soothing cushion, calming inflammation along the intestinal walls and feeding beneficial gut bacteria. For older adults, where gut health directly influences inflammation, energy, and even muscle recovery, this effect is far more important than most people realize.
And then we have the omega-3 factor. While chia doesn't provide the same omega-3 strength as fish oil, its plant-based ALA form is incredibly valuable for reducing visceral fat, the dangerous type of fat that builds around the organs and increases with age. What many people notice after consistent use is that their midsection starts feeling less dense, less tight, almost as if the internal inflammation around the belly is melting down. Another underrated advantage of chia powder is its natural ability to create fullness. The gel expands, slowing down digestion and stabilizing blood sugar. This makes it ideal for individuals who want to lose fat, but don't exercise much or struggle with frequent snacking. Older adults often say they feel satisfied longer and aren't reaching for extra calories mindlessly throughout the day.
And let's not forget the digestive benefits. Chia powder is incredibly helpful for people dealing with constipation or irregular bowel movements, issues that worsen inflammation and make fat loss harder. By improving hydration inside the gut and supporting bowel regularity, chia powder indirectly promotes a cleaner internal environment for nutrient absorption and metabolic health. So while chia powder may not be the strongest muscle-building compound on our list, it earns its place because it prepares the body beautifully, reducing inflammation, improving digestion, supporting omega-3 balance, and helping fat loss feel effortless.
At rank number 4, we have ginger powder, a deceptively simple spice that becomes incredibly powerful when used consistently. Ginger works by gently increasing the body's internal temperature. This thermogenic effect boosts circulation, helping warm the hands and feet, which is something many adults over 60 struggle with. Better circulation also means better delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the muscles, which can make even light activity feel easier.
But the real strength of ginger lies in its anti-inflammatory impact. It directly lowers TNF-alpha, one of the major drivers of chronic inflammation and age-related pain. When TNF alpha drops, people often feel their joints loosen, their body move more freely, and their general sense of heaviness begins to fade. It also reduces muscle soreness, allowing older adults to walk, stretch, or exercise slightly longer, a small but essential step toward rebuilding strength. One of the earliest effects people report is surprisingly simple. The body feels warmer and more alive. Cold hands and feet begin to ease, nighttime sleep becomes deeper, and the abdomen feels lighter because ginger supports digestion and reduces bloating.
Ginger powder shines especially bright for individuals who live with chronic coldness, low circulation, or a sedentary lifestyle but still want to lose fat. Its warming effect naturally boosts calorie burn without requiring intense workouts, making it a perfect supportive compound for older adults who can't tolerate high-impact exercise. Because ginger enhances both metabolic rate and inflammation control, it becomes a bridge between the gentler compounds lower on our list and the more explosive muscle-boosting agents coming up next.
In short, ginger powder earns its position because it changes how the entire body feels: warmer, lighter, more mobile, while quietly reducing inflammation at the cellular level. For many seniors, that shift alone can restart progress they haven't seen in years.
As we move into the top three, the power of these compounds increases dramatically, and turmeric curcumin, especially the 95% extract, rightfully earns its place. Curcumin is one of the few natural compounds capable of shutting down NFKB, the master switch that drives inflammation throughout the entire body. When NFKB is active, every system suffers, which is joints ache, fat becomes harder to lose, and muscle recovery slows to a crawl. When curcumin suppresses it, the body suddenly feels freer, lighter, and less inflamed at the deepest cellular levels. Curcumin also lowers cortisol, the stress hormone strongly linked to stubborn belly fat. Many adults over 60 notice that no matter how little they eat, their waistline doesn't budge, and cortisol is often the hidden culprit. Once curcumin reduces cortisol, the belly begins to soften as the body finally feels safe enough to release stored fat.
And there's another benefit that often surprises people: curcumin boosts nitric oxide production. This means better blood flow, better oxygen delivery, and stronger muscle activation during everyday movement or exercise. For older adults who feel weak or easily fatigued, this improved circulation can be life-changing. What can you expect after 7 to 14 days? The first shift is usually joint comfort, pain becomes less sharp, stiffness eases, and getting out of bed or bending down feels noticeably easier. Soon after, many people observe that the fat around their midsection becomes softer and less dense. Training sessions or walks also feel more productive because muscles recover faster and receive more blood flow.
Turmeric curcumin is not just an anti-inflammatory supplement, it is a full system reset. It calms the body, reduces stress hormones, improves circulation, and prepares the muscles for stronger performance. That's why it stands confidently at rank number 3, bridging the gap between gentle inflammation control and the explosive muscle-boosting effects of the top two compounds ahead.
At rank number 2, we step into a category of compounds that deliver almost immediate physical and unmistakable effects. Beetroot powder earns this position because of its extraordinary ability to raise nitric oxide levels in the body. When nitric oxide surges, blood vessels relax and widen, allowing blood to move more freely. This single shift changes everything. Circulation improves, oxygen delivery skyrockets, and muscles suddenly perform at a level that feels younger.
For many adults over 60, poor circulation is the hidden root of chronic fatigue, muscle weakness, slow recovery, dizziness, or breathlessness when walking uphill. Beetroot powder directly addresses this problem. Increasing oxygen delivery to tissues, it helps the muscles recover faster and contract more effectively. Within the cardiovascular system, it also lowers blood pressure and reduces inflammation inside the vessel walls, making each heartbeat more efficient. The remarkable thing about beetroot powder is how quickly people feel the difference. Within just 5 to 20 minutes, the body begins to warm up, especially the hands and feet, as circulation improves. Many describe their mind becoming clearer, almost as if a fog has lifted. And during exercise, even light walking or gentle strength training, people often notice a 20 to 30% improvement in stamina and power. It feels like the body finally has enough oxygen to do what it's been trying to do all along.
Beetroot powder is particularly suited for older adults who struggle with weak muscles, low oxygen levels in tissues, dizziness, or difficulty catching their breath during daily movement. It turns sluggish circulation into a powerful engine for muscle activation and fat burning. This is why beetroot powder stands so high on our list, not because it works slowly, but because it works right now, shifting the body's internal chemistry in minutes and unlocking performance levels most people thought they had lost forever.
At the very top of our list sits the compound that delivers the most dramatic, noticeable, and transformative results, L-citrulline, especially in its citrulline malate form. This is the ingredient that has earned the nickname the King for older adults trying to rebuild muscle, reduce inflammation, and burn fat at the same time. What makes citrulline so powerful is its unmatched ability to increase nitric oxide, not by a small amount, but by 2 to 3 times more than beetroot. When nitric oxide rises this sharply, blood vessels widen, circulation surges, and muscles receive far more oxygen and nutrients with every contraction.
That's only the beginning. Citrulline also reduces fatigue, allowing older adults to move longer without feeling drained. It decreases DOMS, the soreness that follows activity, which means the body recovers faster and can be trained more frequently. And unlike most supplements, citrulline directly stimulates the mTOR pathway, the master switch for muscle protein synthesis. This means the body doesn't just feel stronger, it actually builds strength at a cellular level. Another overlooked benefit is its activation of AMPK, the metabolic pathway that increases fat oxidation. In simple terms, your body becomes more efficient at using stored fat for energy, especially stubborn belly fat that resists normal dieting.
So, why does just 5 g a day create such a dramatic change? Because citrulline supercharges circulation. When blood flow increases, inflammation drops, oxygen rises, and nutrients reach the muscles at exactly the moment they're needed. The result is rapid muscle activation, visible firmness, and increased stamina, changes that many people have not experienced in decades. And that's why countless users describe the effect as, "My muscles exploded." It's not magic, it's pure physiology working at full power again. Citrulline doesn't just support aging muscles, it reawakens them.
Now that we've explored the 7 compounds and ranked them from mildest to most powerful, the next question becomes the most important one: how do you actually use 5 grams a day to get real results? Because the truth is, even the strongest compound won't work if it's taken at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or without the habits that allow your body to use it fully. And especially for adults over 60, timing, digestion, and circulation make all the difference. One of the simplest principles to remember is this: your stomach should not be empty, but it shouldn't be full either. The ideal moment is when the stomach is roughly 20 to 30% full, usually after a few bites of breakfast or a small piece of fruit. This prevents a sudden spike in insulin, which can interfere with the compound's absorption, while also avoiding the discomfort that sometimes happens when supplements are taken on an empty stomach. For those who use beetroot powder or citrulline, there's an additional advantage to taking them about 45 minutes before exercise or even a short walk. This timing allows nitric oxide levels to rise precisely when your body starts moving, creating that warm, energized, almost switched on feeling that so many people report. It's like giving your circulatory system a gentle head start.
And while timing matters, what you pair these compounds with matters just as much. Vitamin C is one of the best companions because it increases absorption and protects nitric oxide molecules from breaking down too quickly. For older adults who struggle with muscle cramps or weakness, adding electrolytes, especially magnesium and potassium, helps stabilize muscle contraction so circulation improvements translate into better movement. And of course, once you stimulate muscle protein synthesis with citrulline or reduce inflammation with curcumin, Following up with a source of protein after activity significantly boosts muscle repair. When it comes to dosage, most older adults do well with 2.5 to 5 grams a day, but those dealing with stubborn belly fat, higher inflammation, or long-standing fatigue tend to respond better to the full 5-gram dose. And individuals with noticeable muscle weakness often see the best results when they combine the 5 grams with a short 10-minute walk each morning. Movement, even in small amounts, activates the very pathways these compounds rely on.
Of course, some mistakes prevent people from seeing results. One of the most common is taking these compounds on an empty stomach, which can lead to nausea, dizziness, or simply poor absorption. Another mistake is combining them with strong caffeine, which constricts blood vessels and essentially cancels out the nitric oxide benefits. Perhaps the biggest mistake of all is relying solely on supplements without incorporating any movement. Even the most powerful compound cannot circulate properly through stiff, inactive muscles. Just 5 to 10 minutes of light walking, stretching, or slow stair climbing can transform the effectiveness of your 5-gram routine.
When used with intention, at the right time, paired with the right nutrients, and supported with gentle daily movement, 5 grams a day becomes far more than a supplement strategy. It becomes a metabolic reset, it becomes a circulation booster, and for many people over 60, it becomes the first time in years that their muscles, energy, and metabolism feel like they're finally working with them instead of against them.
As we reach the end of today's episode, I want to leave you with one core message, something that ties all 7 compounds together into one simple truth. Inflammation is the silent force that ages the body from the inside out. When inflammation rises, cortisol rises with it, and when cortisol is elevated, belly fat refuses to shrink, muscles struggle to grow, and energy never seems to return. But the moment you lower inflammation, the body begins to reopen pathways that many people over 60 thought were permanently closed. Fat becomes easier to burn, muscles respond more quickly, circulation improves, and metabolism stops fighting you. That's why just 5 grams of the right compound can make such a dramatic difference. With the proper choice, you're activating nitric oxide for blood flow, AMPK for fat burning, and mTOR for muscle building. 3 powerful switches that rarely turn on together as we age.
And before we close, let's quickly revisit the top 3 compounds because these are the ones that create the most noticeable transformation. Citrulline stands at number 1 for its unmatched ability to boost nitric oxide and trigger muscle growth. Beetroot powder comes next for rapidly improving circulation and oxygen delivery, effects you can feel within minutes. And curcumin, the master anti-inflammatory, calms the internal fire that makes aging feel heavier than it should. Your body is not done improving. It simply needs the right biochemical support, at the right dose, at the right time. Tell us in the comments, which compound are you excited to try first? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, where we break down another powerful strategy for restoring strength, energy, and longevity after 60.